Purim, Yud Dalet Adar, the 14th of Adar, and it marks the Hilula of former, let's say, chief rabbi of the United Kingdom for the Sephardi community. His name was Rabbi Moses Gaster Z'tl Livrachav, and the great rabbis, especially very famous rabbis, in the early 1900s, respectively. He was very, very well traveled, very well knowledgeable in of itself. He was born, actually to be precise, on the 17th of September in English year, 1856, and he passed away on the 5th of March, 1939. He was approximately 82 years of age at the time he passed away. And let's explore some of the highlights of the famous rabbi's life. Now, it's actually interesting. He was born in Bucharest in Romania. Now, we haven't really spoken about many rabbis that was born in that specific city in of itself or country, but he was born there, obviously, naturally, in the year 1856, this was. And he came from a well-known Jewish Austrian family, which had settled in Wallachia, I think, at the beginning of the 19th century, early 1800s, respectively. He was the elder son of the Chevalier Abraham Emanuel Gaster. I believe he was a consul, actually, of the Netherlands, of Holland, in Bucharest, and the grandson of Asriel Gaster. He himself happened to be a famous, let's just say, well-off merchant and a community leader, respectively. His mother was a woman of the name Penina Judith Rubenstein, and she actually herself came from the rabbinical dynasty, which included Rabbi Levi Isaac ben Meir. Very interesting enough. So he did come from greatness in the rabbinic field, respectively. He would take his degree in his native city in the year 1874. Remember, he'd be about 18 years of age at that point in time. He would eventually go to Leipzig over there, where he would receive a PhD, come on, 1878. So he was only about 22 years of age at that point in time. And then he would go to the Jewish seminary in Breslau. Very interesting enough, that naturally is in southern west Poland, and largest city of the historic capital of the region of Silesia over there. And he gained the Hatarat Hora'ah, let's say a rabbinic diploma, in the 1881. By that point, he would be about 25 years of age. And I believe he was very, very well, let's just say, knowledgeable with regards to Romanian popular literature. And he would publish some of his writings in Bucharest in the year 1883. At that stage, he would be towards his mid-late 20s. He would become a lecturer on Romanian language and literature at the University of Bucharest. I would think this was between the years 1881 to 1885. He'll be an inspector general of schools and a member of the Council for Examining Teachers in Romania. So very much he had a integral part over there. He will also lecture on Romanian, various other subjects connected to Romania. So he was an expert with regards to that. And I believe he really discovered many, many different manuscripts, as we're going to touch on towards the end of this video in of itself. He was central figure of the Hibat Sion in Romania over there. Hibat Sion is something we've spoken about on many occasions before. Naturally, we call that lovers of Zion at that point in time. It was a group of variety of proto-Zionist organizations. I believe that was founded in 1881. I believe. Very interesting enough. So he had a central role in the 1882 establishment by Jews for the monastery of the Samarin, or Zamarin settlement, known since 1884 popularly as Zichron Yaakov. Interesting enough. Okay, so he would eventually move to England. Why did he move to England? It was reported over he was expelled from Romania by the Ion Brătianu government in 1885. He would have been at that stage about close to 30 years of age. For the allegation was that he was a member of the Irredentist Society. So he would go to England eventually, where he would held a lectureship, I think between 1886 to 1891, in Slavonic literature, and also in Oxford University, famous university in England. His lectures were later on published, I believe, in the Greco-Slavonic literature, London, in 1886, reported over. So at that point in time, he was still in his 20s, I believe, or about to hit 30 at that point in time, which is which has to be pointed out. But I think a few years later, it was reported over the Romanian government would cancel the decree of expulsion, which had been presented to him with Romanian Ordinal National Pentru Merit, I think, of first class in 1891, and they would invite him to return. However, he would decline the invitation at that point in time. And come 1893, he became a British citizen. And in 1895, at the request of the Romanian government, he wrote a report on the British system of education, which was printed as a green book and later on accepted as a basis of education in Romania. In 1887, Rabbi Gaster was appointed the Chacham of the Spanish-Portuguese Congregation in London, a very, very prominent position, and there haven't been that many, maybe just a dozen chief rabbis, let's just say, or Nasi, you could call, various different titles was given, and it was in a capacity he presided over the famous Bevis Mark synagogue. He was invited and to various different lectures at Oxford, and I think in 1887 many of his lectures, I think, were published in of itself. He was appointed a principal of the Judith Lady Montefiore College of Ramsgate from 1891 to 1896, and he wrote a valuable essay collection of essays accompanying the yearly reports of that institution. He would become a member also of the councils of folklore, biblical, archaeological, and royal Asiatic societies. Also, he wrote many different papers in their interest. He was the only ordained rabbi ever to become a president of the Folklore Society in 1907 to 1908. So he was very, very on the many different circles and very believed into getting out there and having dialogue and having positions all over throughout the breadth of, let's just say, the United Kingdom in of itself in various different positions. Come 1925, Rabbi Gaster was appointed one of the 6 members of the Honorary Board of Trustees of the Yiddish Scientific Institution, which is very interesting. I think alongside with Simon Dubnow, Albert Einstein, Sigmund Freud, Edward Sapir, and Chaim Zitlowski. Very interesting. He would visit the Holy Land also. There was an ambition of his, and he would make a special study, apparently reported over the Samaritans, and he would actually become a recognized authority on their language and literature. He would visit Nablus, reported over in Ottoman Beirut Vilayet, and the headquarters of the Samaritan community. And I think induced them to part with manuscripts covering the whole range of literature. And he could not necessarily, I think, he tried to get the originals. He had copies, I think, from those let's just say from that community. Rabbi Gaster was among the most active leaders of the Zionistic movement in England, and even while in Romania, he assisted in establishing the Jewish town in Israel of Zichron Yaakov. He would, let's say, rise in when it came to worldwide Jewish affairs, and became the vice president of the first Zionistic Congress in Basel. Interesting, and become a prominent, let's say, figure in each succeeding congress. Rav Gaster's residence mitzvah, I think, was in the famous 193 Maida Vale in London. And obviously that would serve, let's say, as a venue of talks between various different Zionists and the Foreign Office, I think, come up 1917 also. And he had an integral part with the first draft of the Balfour Declaration, which was written at the famous house of Rav Gaster. This was reported over to have been on the 7th of February in the year 1917. Various other dignitaries and famous people, including Nahum Sokolov, Chaim Weizmann, Baron Rothschild, Sir Mark Kykes, and Herbert Samuel, I believe, were there, if I'm not mistaken. And various different noblemen and prime ministers would actually visit his home, including the famous Winston Churchill and Vladimir Lenin and Sigmund Freud. Very interesting. Now, also, he was a collector of various different manuscripts over there. He reported over had 2,000, mainly Hebrew, Samaritan, and Slavonic. I believe, come the outbreak of the Second World War, his collection was moved for safekeeping to cellars in the centre of London. However, it was reported over that water used to quench London fires saturated large parts of the collection, which made some of the items illegible in whole or in part. I think some of them had been transliterated into Hebrew typescript, if I'm not mistaken. This collection comprised over 10,000 fragments in Hebrew and Judeo-Arabic from Cairo, Geniza, all different places. I think from the Geniza or the Ben Ezra synagogue in Old Cairo. It's reported over 350 codices and scrolls, including the prayer books of Jewish communities, writings, commentaries, marriage contracts, purity, so on and so forth, were among these, if I'm not mistaken. I think come 1954, the collection was purchased eventually by the John Ryland Library. And I think it will become part of the University of Manchester Library in 1972. And the Gaster collection, I think it's a number of mainly Yemenite manuscripts, maybe some Karaite ones also reported over, were purchased from the library of Dr. Moses Gaster in 1927 and are currently, I believe, held in the British Library, reported over. Now, among his private life, he was the father of reported over of Jack and Theodore Gaster. These happen to be, I think, Theodore Gaster happened to be a British-born American biblical scholar known for work on comparative religion. It's just, I think he wrote a book in 1950. And and he was the grandfather of Margarita Lasky, I believe. And or maybe the great-grandfather. I have to double-check on that. He was also son-in-law to Michael Friedlander. Michael Friedlander happened to have been a principal of Jews College in London, and also the father-in-law of someone named Neville Lasky. Also, I think he was a judge and leader of Anglo Jewry in his day. Now, let's look at some of the works he did. Now, it was a phenomenal amount of works and writings he would actually come about because of him. Okay, let's just explore it. Literature Popular Romana, that was in 1883. Jewish Folklore in 1887, based on the Middle Ages. The Chrestomati Romana, which was in 2 volumes in 1891. I think there was another literature book in Greco-Slavonic in 1887. The Sword of Moses, it was an ancient manuscript book based on a book of magic, reported in 1896. Chronicles of Jeremiah in 1899. There was various other books also. I'm not going to list all the books, including the Hebrew version of the Secretorum in 1907-ish. The Exemplar of the Rabbis in 1924. The Studies and Texts in Folklore was in 1925 to 1928. The Assatir, the Samaritan book, The Secret of Moses in 1927. And there was various other writings, including the story of Passover, the story of Purim in 1929, the story of Shavuot in 1930, and so on and so forth. A lot of different books. I'm not going to list all of them, but that's just a highlight of it. He contributes a lot, let's say, to periodical literature. Also, many different things, and there was biographies within regards to him. And it's his Hilula here on Purim, Yud Daled Adar, the 14th of Adar, respectively. He one of the chief rabbis, or Nassis, or heads of the Sephardi Jewish community of the United Kingdom. And I think we've nearly covered all the head rabbis of the SMP, respectively, inside this series. Now, friends, we're a community here. We're learning about the great Oriental rabbis of yesteryear very much. Now, I'm not so sure where his family descended from 500-600 years beforehand. It'd be interesting, though. Maybe he did come from a Spanish-Portuguese background. I'm not too sure, but in his recent previous, before he was born, he was Romanian and Austrian, so that'll be interesting. And if I'm not mistaken, if he would have been Ashkenazic, which seemingly it's seeming like he would have been, might have made him the only Ashkenazic leader of the Spanish-Portuguese community in the timeline. But that I'd have to double check anyway. So he was about 82 years of age at the time he passed away. And please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, share the videos to other people that might be interested. And we've covered around nearly more than 800 videos of the famous Chachamim of Yester. Here happens to be Purim. Today, Yud Daled Adar over here in Bet Shemesh. And tomorrow evening, it's going to be Shabbat, Parshat Ki Tisa. So very action-packed these next 24 hours are, but a special treat over here to recount the history of the famous Rabbi Moses Gaster, Rabbi Moshe Gaster, respectively. So wishing you well and take care.